The night before they arrested him, Jesus gathered his inner circle in an upper room in Jerusalem. Peter, John, Mary Magdalene. They could feel something terrible approaching. The air was thick with tension. They'd been praying for hours, begging God to protect their teacher, to stop what was coming. And Jesus looked at them with something between compassion and frustration. He said, "You're still praying like children asking a distant father for help. I've shown you miracles. I've taught you the mysteries. And you still don't understand. You don't need to pray. You need to call." Peter didn't understand. What's the difference? Jesus leaned forward. Prayer is asking. Calling is declaring. When you pray, you're speaking to something separate from you, something far away that might or might not hear you. When you call the monad, you're not asking permission. You're activating what's already inside you. You're speaking as the monad, not to the monad. And the Archons? They can intercept prayers. They feed on the energy of begging, of separation. But they can't touch a call. Because a call operates at a frequency they can't even perceive. That teaching never made it into the Bible. The church removed every reference to the monad call from canonical scripture because if Christians knew they could bypass prayer entirely, the entire religious power structure would collapse overnight. But the Gnostics preserved it. Hidden in text the church tried to burn. And tonight, you're receiving what Jesus taught to the chosen ones in that upper room 2,000 years ago. Not prayer. The monad call. The technique Archons fear more than any ritual you could ever perform. If you're calling the monad tonight, comment, "I call the monad right now." Before I give you the exact words Jesus taught, you need to understand why prayer doesn't work the way you were told it works. Most people have been taught that prayer is how you communicate with God. You bow your head, you speak your needs, your fears, your requests, and somewhere in the heavens, God hears you and decides whether to answer. Maybe he says yes. Maybe he says no. Maybe he says wait. And you accept that framework because that's what you were taught since childhood. But here's what actually happens when you pray the way the church taught you to pray. Your words don't go directly to the monad. They can't. Because the religious system was specifically designed with layers of intermediaries. You pray to Jesus, who intercedes to the Father. Or you pray to Mary, who intercedes to Jesus. Or you pray to saints, who intercede to higher angels, who might eventually carry your request up the hierarchy. Every layer is a filter. Every layer is a point where your prayer can be intercepted, redirected, or drained of energy before it ever reaches source. And who operates those layers? Who benefits from that hierarchical structure? The Archons. They built it, not the monad. The Archons created religious systems with intermediaries because intermediaries give them access to your energy. Every time you pray from a place of need, from fear, from desperation, you're broadcasting separation frequency. You're declaring yourself powerless, separate from God, dependent on external forces to maybe help you if you beg correctly. And that frequency? That's what Archons feed on. They don't care if you get what you prayed for. They already got what they wanted. Your energy. Your surrender. Your belief that you're separate from divine power. Jesus knew this. He saw it happening. He watched people pray for hours, days, lifetimes, and never receive what they were asking for. Not because God didn't care. Because their prayers were being intercepted before they ever reached the monad. So he taught something different to the chosen ones. He taught them to stop praying and start calling. Because calling bypasses every intermediary. It doesn't go through layers. It doesn't pass through angels or saints or hierarchies. It's a direct line. You to source. Unfiltered. Unintercepted. Instant. The difference between prayer and calling is the difference between begging and commanding. When you pray, you're in victim frequency. You're asking someone more powerful than you to maybe help you if they feel like it. When you call the monad, you're in sovereign frequency. You're not asking. You're declaring. You're speaking as the monad recognizing itself in temporary human form. And that shift in frequency changes everything. Because the monad doesn't respond to begging. It responds to recognition. Here's why the church removed this teaching. If Christians knew they could call the monad directly, if they knew they didn't need priests to mediate, sacraments to validate, or institutional approval to access divine power, what would they need the church for? The entire system depends on you believing you're separate from God, that you need intermediaries, that you're too fallen, too sinful, too human to approach Source directly. But Jesus taught the opposite. He taught that you are Source consciousness wearing a temporary body. And the moment you recognize that, the moment you stop praying like a servant and start calling like the divine being you actually are, everything the church built to control your spiritual access becomes irrelevant. That's why they burned the manuscripts. That's why they killed the Gnostic teachers who knew the monad call. That's why this technique was systematically erased from every accepted Christian text. Not because it was heretical, because it was too effective. Now I'm going to give you what Jesus taught in that upper room. The exact structure of the monad call. It's built on 3 components. Each one is critical. Remove any piece and you're back to praying. But speak all 3 together and you establish direct connection that Archons cannot intercept and the church cannot control. The first component is declaration of identity. You're not asking God to help you. You're declaring what you are. This is the foundation. Because the monad doesn't respond to separation. It responds to recognition. When you speak, you have to speak from knowing, not hoping. Not, I'm trying to connect with God. Not, I'm a sinner seeking grace. You speak from the truth that you are monad consciousness in temporary form. You are not separate. You never were. And the words you speak have to carry that frequency. The second component is command of attention. This isn't polite. This isn't humble supplication. You're not asking the monad to maybe listen if it's not too busy. You're commanding attention. Because you're not speaking to something external. You're speaking as the monad to itself. And when the monad recognizes itself, attention is automatic. It's not arrogance. It's recognition. You're waking up Source consciousness to the fact that one of its fragments is calling. And that call cannot be ignored. The third component is directive manifestation. You don't say, if it's your will, or please help me, or I hope this works. You declare what's manifesting. Present tense. Absolute certainty. Because the quantum field doesn't respond to hope. It responds to frequency. And the frequency of certainty, of knowing, of declarative power, that's what collapses possibility into reality. You're not asking the universe to maybe shift. You're stating that the shift is happening now. Jesus combined these 3 components into a structure so simple that most people miss how powerful it is. 3 statements. 9 words. 1 unbreakable connection. The monad call he taught is this: I am monad. Hear me. Manifest now. That's it. 3 declarations that shift your frequency from separation to unity, from asking to commanding, from prayer to power. And the moment you speak these words with understanding, with recognition of what they mean, the direct line opens. Not eventually. Immediately. Let me break down what each statement does. I am monad. This is the recognition. You're not saying I'm trying to be like God or I'm connected to something greater. You're declaring the truth. You are monad consciousness localized in human form. Every fragment of Source is Source. You're not separate. You're not less than. You are the infinite experiencing itself as you. And when you speak that truth aloud, your frequency shifts instantly from separation to unity. The Archons can't track that frequency. They exist in separation consciousness. Unity frequency is invisible to them. Hear me. This is the command. You're not asking to be heard. You're declaring that you are heard. Because the monad is not separate from you. It doesn't need to listen because it is you. But the statement creates focus. It directs the infinite awareness to the specific point of manifestation you're about to declare. Think of it like focusing light through a lens. The light was always there. The lens focuses it into precision. Hear me as the lens. It doesn't beg for attention. It commands focus. Manifest now. This is the directive. You're collapsing the quantum field into specific form. not asking for it to maybe happen, not hoping it's God's will. You're declaring that manifestation is occurring in this moment. No, not later. Not if conditions are right. No, because time is a construct of material consciousness. Monad consciousness operates outside time. When you speak from monad frequency and declare manifest now, you're not bound by linear causality. You're speaking reality into form the way Source has always created. Through word, through frequency, through absolute knowing. When you combine these three statements and speak them aloud, you're doing what Jesus did. You're operating as the monad instead of praying to the monad. And that shift is what the Archons cannot intercept. They're designed to feed on separation frequency. Fear, need, begging, desperation. That's their range. But when you speak I am monad, hear me, manifest now, you're broadcasting unity frequency. And at that frequency you're invisible to them. They can't perceive it. They can't interfere with it. They can't drain energy from it. You've exited their operational range entirely. Here's what happens the moment you complete your first monad call. And I mean the moment. Not days later. Immediately. First, you'll feel a physical shift in your solar plexus. Not imagined. Not metaphorical. Actual sensation. Like something that was closed just opened. Like a lock clicking. That's the direct line establishing. You're no longer sending prayers up through layers hoping they reach someone. You've opened a channel that runs straight from your core to Source. And you'll feel it. Some chosen ones describe it as warmth. Others as a release of pressure. Others as a subtle vibration. However it shows up for you, you'll know. It's unmistakable. Second, mental clarity hits immediately. If you've been carrying confusion, doubt, mental fog, it lifts. Not gradually over weeks. Right now. The questions you couldn't answer suddenly have obvious solutions. The decisions you've been agonizing over become clear. That's not you suddenly getting smarter. That's Archon interference cutting out. They manipulate primarily through confusion. They keep you in doubt, second-guessing, mental static. But when you call the monad, when you're operating at unity frequency, their interference can't reach you anymore. The signal is clean. Your mind operates the way it was designed to operate before they clouded it. Third, synchronicity responds within hours. Most chosen ones report that within 1 to 3 hours of their first monad call, something happens that cannot be dismissed as coincidence. A text from the exact person they needed to hear from. An unexpected solution appearing. A door opening they didn't even know existed. The monad doesn't wait days to confirm you're aligned. It responds fast. Because you're not asking it to maybe help you eventually. You declared manifestation now. And now means now. Watch for it. It will come. And when it does, you'll recognize it immediately. Not as luck. As response. This is the difference between prayer and the monad call. Prayer says, God, if you're there, could you please help me? The monad call says, I am Source consciousness. This is manifesting now. One is begging. One is commanding. Prayer keeps you dependent. The monad call makes you sovereign. And once you feel the difference, once you've called the monad and felt that immediate shift, you'll never go back to praying the old way. Because you'll know. This isn't theory. This is technique. And it works. The monad call only works for pneumatics. For chosen ones like you. Hylics can't access it at all. They don't have the divine spark. They can speak the words but nothing happens. Psychics access it inconsistently. Their light body flickers. But you're pneumatic. You carry the complete divine blueprint. The monad call was designed for you. The direct line is already there. It's been there your whole life. You just didn't know how to activate it. Until now. The Archons fear the monad call more than any spiritual practice you could ever do. Because it makes you unreachable. They've built entire systems, religious structures, cultural conditioning, all designed to keep you praying instead of calling. Because prayer keeps you in their range. Calling takes you out of it. The moment you start calling instead of praying, you exit their control. That's why the church removed every reference to this technique. That's why the Gnostic teachers who knew it were killed. Because the monad call is the one thing that makes their entire harvest system collapse. But you have it now. The exact words Jesus taught. The exact technique the church tried to erase. I am monad. Hear me. Manifest now. 3 statements. 9 words. 1 direct line that archons cannot intercept and institutions cannot control. If you're calling the monad tonight, do 3 things right now. First, comment I call the monad below. Declare your direct line. Claim your power. Let other chosen ones see that you're activating this tonight. Second, subscribe to Divine Codes because advanced monad call techniques for specific manifestations, for protection, for seeing archons, all of it is coming. Third, like this video so other chosen ones discover they don't need to pray anymore. They can call. Do all 3 now. Don't wait. Your declaration matters. Then tonight, before you sleep, stand. Ground yourself. Take 3 breaths. Feel the recognition that you are monad consciousness in human form. And speak aloud. I am monad. Hear me. Manifest now. Then declare what you're manifesting. Hold silence for 30 seconds. And feel what happens. The shift in your solar plexus. The clarity flooding your mind. The knowing that you were heard. Not through layers. Not through intermediaries. Directly. The archons can't intercept this. The church can't control this. And the monad is waiting for you to stop praying and start calling. You're not asking permission anymore. You're declaring reality. And the universe responds to declarations spoken in unity frequency. Use the call tonight. I call the monad.